For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love.
And what are some of the things that you really
run out of time, and we've got to talk about your latest. I want to go back a little bit, first of all, and celebrate a true legend.
Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work.
And did you pursue performing opportunities while you were in high school?
Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Hello, everybody. All kinds of glitches going on here. My house is topsy-turvy right now because my kitchen is being redone, which is just on the other side of this door. So all kinds of things may be going kaflooey. But one thing that will not go kaflooey today is the fact that Guy Stroman is here in the house. And we are going to be celebrating him today. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My show is about celebrating life, celebrating art, celebrating artists. And I believe that there is a lot to celebrate if we only take the time to do so. So Guy, I'll start with you by asking you, what are you celebrating today?
Well, that it's Tuesday and the sun is out, and it's another day in New York City that was productive in the best way possible at this particular time of all of us here in this town, but and celebrating meeting you. I don't know if we've ever met before. I certainly know of you, but please, who doesn't? I mean, look at that body.
That could be a loaded comment.
Yeah. Well, you can take it any way you want to, but look at that group of people that were just there in your intro. Is pretty amazing. So I thank you for the opportunity. So maybe I'm celebrating just being on your show. That's it's certainly a surprise.
Well, thank you. I will to let everyone know that last week, and it's available on demand, Sandy, Duncan, and Don Correa were in the very seat that you're in right now. Well, not the very seat, but the same spot.
They could have been. They've been back here in this chair, I can tell you that. But they said they just had a ball.
Well, and I had the best time with them, and they suggested that you come on the show. I reached out, and here you are. But Don Correa had another angle that we should take with this show, didn't he?
Yeah, he wanted you to change the title just for today so that you can celebrate the worthlessness of me.
Well, we don't go there.
No, the three of us go way back. But
well, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But I want to let everyone know that it is National Gourmet Coffee Day. So if you're a coffee drinker, it's a perfect day for you. It's National Peking Duck Day. Believe it or not, and it's National Maintenance Day, which may account for my kitchen being renovated.
That's why they were there today. They'll stand you up tomorrow. You won't be able to find them tomorrow.
So, Guy, over the holidays, someone sent me this great game called Be Best. I'm mentioning this because today we have a sponsor. And our sponsor is the interview game. And it's this wonderful way of being able to interact with each other. We're actually going to be giving away a special version of the interview game at the end of today's show. But I'm pulling a random question. I have not even looked at this question that I'm going to start with to get us started today. And the question is
a question from this game?
Well, this is from the Be Best game, but it's a very similar theme. What mistake do you keep making over and over again?
What mistake do I keep making over and over again? Oh, trying to think. Well, it's not a bad mistake. It certainly has not left me, wandering aimlessly in the wilderness. Is that I keep expecting the best in every set of circumstances, that things will work out the way they were meant to work out. Maybe it's not a mistake at all, but because you never know how the end game is going to play out. But maybe it's a mistake to try to anticipate the final outcome of that which you have put a lot of effort into.
I think so, and but I look at life. I like to think of it as lessons as opposed to mistakes.
Yeah.
We learn if we're wise enough to learn from these.
Oh, sure. That's the benefit of getting older, is that you've learned from so many different, sets of circumstances, if we don't want to call them mistakes, that it just leaves you a little more at peace about what transpires from day to day, really.
Well, before the show started, I reached out and I asked for a photograph of you as a 5-year-old, and we have
Yeah.
this photograph here.
Oh, it came
Obviously, I did get it. You haven't
very
changed
casual.
a bit.
Yeah.
Now, there's a method to my madness.
Uh-huh.
Those who watch my show know that I always like to go back to the 5-year-old self.
Right.
Because to me, the 5-year-old self is the purest self. It's before school starts, in most cases,
Right.
peer pressure. You start becoming what the other students want you to be, and you start becoming what teachers start molding you into being. Who is this 5-year-old kid?
He was the second son. He had an older brother that he adored even then. And he was the second son of what ultimately ended up being 4 children in that family, but the other 2 came much later. My parents almost had 2 families, to tell you the truth. And he was those hands in the pockets makes me laugh, because he was, if I remember the stories that were told about me, I was not intimidated by any social circle, whether they were all relatives or they were all new people. I just fit in anywhere that they happened to drag me, whether it be to aunts and uncles or to the State Fair of Texas. I made myself at home there too, wandering off. So I do remember being loving great parties, like loving big gatherings, whether it be holidays or we would spend every weekend with grandparents at that point because they didn't live that far away. And I loved to change up the day-to-day routines. And I was happy. It was a happy childhood.
Now, did you grow up in a household that was surrounded by music or the arts?
A lot of music, yeah, not necessarily artistic professionals at all. Not only one uncle ended up, my mother's brother, who became kind of a renowned concert and opera singer out in the West Coast in the Bay Area, and a teacher too as well. In fact, 2 of his students started Green Day. They were in his show choir there in Northern California. Yeah. But there was always music around, I grew up in a church setting where there was only a cappella singing. There was no instrumental music. Someone would blow a pitch pipe and everyone would sing. My mother's family, literally, when they got together, her brothers would always get out some songbook, some hymnal. And I learned to sight read that way. I learned to sing all 4 parts, so I just wouldn't get bored in church, Wow. And so there was always singing, but it was instrumental. It was a cappella. There were nobody played the piano. I played the trumpet for a while. My older brother played the trombone for a bit, and then I traded that in for a little guitar, but then I dropped that too. I've always known how to sing. Since yeah.
Now, I know that you went to a Christian university as well, but did you grow up? Was your house very religious?
Well, they were, but it was a very ecumenical religious household. It was not anything like, anybody who believes differently is going, straight to the dark place. It was very Sunday after church, that my family, particularly because they were all my grandparents and my dad, that were all big thinkers. Everything got dissected. So I didn't really ever grow up with a lot of feeling of religious guilt or, disappointing somebody or committing the ultimate cardinal sins. I didn't grow up with that at all. It was always kind of, strangely enough, in that kind of fundamental world, strangely not very emotional. It was very intellectual and very scholarly.
And when did the opportunities start happening for you outside of the church, as far as singing and having opportunities to really pursue that business that you wanted to go into? And
I've always said it finds us. You can try to stay away from this business as much as you want to, but it finds you. It really does.
Right.
I've seen it happen. Too many other people. I teach too much to see the different stories of people saying, I don't have any idea. I don't know how I came to this, but when you look back, it usually is a teacher in middle school, which was junior high back then, seventh through ninth grade, my seventh grade homeroom teacher, whom you kept all 3 years in that school at that point, was incredibly instrumental. He was the speech and drama teacher too, as well. And you had no choice. He put you into things. He would tour these one-act plays with the 7th, 8th graders in a lifeboat with some one-act play that he had found. We would go do a speech contest at the Optimist Club or the Rotary Club. And he was incredibly instrumental that way, not just for myself, but for other people out of that school. And then I was lucky enough when I went off to TCU, it was always academic. It was, I Phi Beta Kappa and senior scholar. And summa cum laude. Yeah, it was
Yes.
degree in English, American literature of the South after 1850, to be specific, and German. And because I loved 20th century German literature. So I just went ahead and got a double major in German.
When did you realize, or when did it hit you that you could possibly have this as a career?
Not until I got into college, to tell you the truth. I did all the shows in high school and was head cheerleader and, student body president. I did all of that, but I didn't have any idea how anyone made a living doing what I was doing in high school. But I went off to TCU and I happened to see, this is a true story, but it's not just my story. I know countless people who've found their way in this way. There was a poster at the Student Union building when I was a junior in college. And it said, we're auditioning tomorrow for the shows at Six Flags Over Texas. I'd never seen a show at Six Flags Over Texas. I didn't know anybody in a show in Six Flags Over Texas. And it said singers, dancers, actors wanted. And I went, well, I know I acted in high school and I'd done a couple of plays that I just wandered into the theater department at TCU and they let me audition, even though I wasn't in the department. And I knew I could sing. And the next day it was, it sleeted. So they moved from where they were going to be, the University of Texas at Austin, moved the auditions to the park itself towards the end of January. And I was all dressed up in my best polyester suit because I had been elected to Phi Beta Kappa as a junior, and LBJ was there that day. So I'd been to some sort of function, and then I drove out to Six Flags Over Texas and followed a group of people into this barren, closed park to something called the Crazy Horse Saloon. They were being loud and very theatrical and very dramatic. And I went, well, they must know where they're going. And there were about, I signed up pretty early and there was about 300 people, I think. It was a big job back then. And the first couple of people had sheet music and I didn't bring any sheet music, and they had pictures and things, and they were all, show business, like, and I left. I left the audition 4 times. And the 4th time I came back from my car. It was still sleeting out there. And I said, those sons of bitches are going to watch me audition. I don't care what, because I had chosen to do a James Weldon Johnson poem, one of the poets out of the Harlem Renaissance in the 20s. That 7th, 8th, and 9th grade teacher had given me for forensic contests called Go Down Death. It was part of a poem cycle based on 7 days of a revival meeting, tent meeting. And on the Saturday night lesson was called Go Down Death. The Sundays was the resurrection poem. And he had 7 poems in this cycle. And I used to win awards in the eighth grade with that poem called Go Down Death. And then I sang a spiritual a cappella. Now, granted, by this time, there were only 3 little girls left because every time I left, I lost my place in line. So I'd been there now for hours. And I thought, they're going to hear me do this. I finally took anger to stay there because I didn't know anybody. I had no clue what those shows were even like. And they hired me on the spot. And 3 weeks later, I was in a room learning sheet music from, these reviews, these pace job shows that they would do there. And a couple weeks later, I was dancing. I'd never danced a step in my life, not choreographically. And that made all the difference. Pauletta Pearson was in that cast, who's married to Denzel Washington.
Debbie Whiteman was there.
Oh, yeah, there are all kinds
That's
of
what she's
people.
watching. She said to say hello.
Oh my God. And she knows those shows. You know,
Yes.
that first year, there was the passing parade. They were 45-minute reviews. There were about 20 players in the pit. There were no click tracks. There were no body mics. It was all floor mics. And you danced your ass off for 45 minutes, 6 shows a day, unless you were doubling that day because you could get more money. And you could do 10 shows a day. And by the end of the following Thanksgiving, I had sung Corner of the Sky 900 times.
Good for you.
And you
paid
know
your
very
dues.
well. Well, you know very well. It's like the vaudeville of its day. You know very well if you're going to get that or it's going to drive you nuts doing it. Replicating that with different audiences under all kinds of circumstances, having to punt all the time. And I did 3 seasons there before Jack Lee hired me at the Dallas Summer Musicals. And I didn't even want to go to that audition. I was talked into it. So it finds you, this profession. And then once it does, it regardless of how it batters you, it ends up keeping you. If you're
Well, I want to ask you it's a very simple question, but what are some of the life lessons that you learned from that first professional job that you have that you've carried through your entire career?
That kind of innate and easily accessible self-discipline, generated from inside. I also learned a craft that they actually paid me $3.10 an hour to learn that craft. What do you do with your voice when it's not the greatest? And, I'm 20 years old, 21 years old. And so you learn that kind of not only emotional and mental self-discipline, you learn physical self-discipline because we partied a lot, but you had to, you were still working 6 days a week. And we could because we were younger. And then you learned how to function with all different kinds of personalities in what is basically a collaborative company.
Absolutely.
Which is the only art form that is that collaborative. If I was a sculptor, I could have sat at home and sculpted all day long, or painted all day long, or written all day long. And this one only exists. I swear, this is what gets me up in the morning. This art form only exists if there's one other person to see you do it. And in terms of the live theater, the reason that the theater fascinates me even deeper is that you can do that 900 times or the same 8 shows a week for 2 years. And what you do that night only exists for that night.
Mm-hmm.
I could hang my painting up on the wall. Nobody might buy it, but it'd be there. But what I do that night only exists within the minds and the experiences and the memories of the people who saw it.
So obviously, I mean, you get this great break, your first big audition, and you're off and running. But again, when did the spark happen where you said, okay, I'm going to really pursue this?
That would have been then following at the Dallas Summer Musicals. Back then, they were such a producing house. Tom Hughes, Jack Lee, the musical director.
Oh, absolutely.
They were all there. And people would come through like that first year that I worked there. And I was told, because there was a lot of still resident people that had been there forever. And seriously, I didn't want to go. I was talked into it. I had papers to grade on that Saturday, and I wanted to wash my car because that time I was teaching middle school. I was teaching English in middle school, right out of college. And I went, and God, I remember the song I sang because I always liked that score. I said from Dr. Dolittle. What was the name of it? It'll come to me in a minute. But so many memories are flashing back right now. But that first year, I started. We opened that season, and this is when it hit me. First of all, you got your equity card. I didn't even really know what that was when I started. And
so the show that you get your equity card with is.
I'm sorry. That was Gone with the Wind.
I'm sorry.
The musical version of Gone with the Wind by Harold Rome. And at that point, it was the third incarnation of that. And the book was written by Horton Foote.
Wow.
Both of whom were there.
How long was this production? I mean, in length, and because I know that
The
Leslie and Warren.
2-day long version. Yeah, that was 2 parts, right? Remember, I guess it was Hart Presnell and Leslie Caron did it.
Leslie and Warren.
Leslie Ann Warren, I mean, in London, and I think somebody had done it in Japan, if I don't
That's right. That's correct.
remember correctly. And Jack was musical directing it, and it was a huge production. The Disney company had come in to do all the pyrotechnics to burn Atlanta at the end of Act One. And when Larry Guittard sang "Gone with the Wind," the title song at the end of Act One, and we took it. I didn't know it, but the people in the company never got roles. I just knew that I was playing Charles Hamilton, Scarlett's first husband, which I sang the first song that turned into a duet with her, that turned into a quartet with Larry and Lee Berry, who was playing Melanie. The Scarlett was Sherry Mathis, who I think ended up being on a soap opera for a long time. She passed away young, I think, something like uterine cancer or something. Wow. But I then died with the measles, and I only had to come back in Act Two to be like a dead person in the railroad scene. And I thought show business is great. That was my first professional job, was at the Down Summer Musical. And that year I was Noah Claypole in that Vincent Price with Vincent Price. And
well, that's something you and I have in common. I played Noah Claypole in Stock. So
did you really? Yeah. Yeah. It was I remember playing John the stage manager in Funny Girl with Carol Lawrence, and Ron Holgate was Nicky Arnstein with Carol Lawrence. And then we did the Wizard of Oz that Chris Hewitt directed. And the Scarecrow was Harvey Evans. The Cowardly Lion was Iggy Wolfington. And the Tin Man was Will, what was his name? Later became a big television director. Will
McKenzie.
That was that cast. And Susan Watson was Dorothy. Good host Susan Watson.
I've got a comment from Debbie Weidman. I'm going to read it to you. Sure. You encouraged me when I was having trouble learning my dances that first year. You helped me like Fred Astaire helped Debbie Reynolds during Singing in the Rain. I'm forever grateful.
Oh,
thank you, Debbie.
Well, we all help each other.
So I know that you and I both came to New York in the same year, and we're going to get to that. 1979. But what was it? A show that brought you to New York? Or
yes, that was Peter Pan. That was at the Dallas Summer Musicals that Tom was putting together with Zev Buffman. And like Gone with the Wind, that first year, we had taken it to Atlanta, which was amazing. We took it outdoors in Kansas City, and it I think it died a slow death after Kansas City, that 8,000 seat theater there. But each year, Tom Hughes was really consciously trying to get something to move. I think the next year I was there, I was playing Fiedka and the Russian tenor in Herschel Bernardi's Fiddler on the Roof, and that toured, but we were going to go to California with that, but it closed at Valley Forge. And then they were going to bring in Annie Get Your Gun with Debbie Reynolds and Harp Presnell, but then she wanted to bring her Los Angeles cast. So finally with Peter Pan, we started, and Jack kept saying to me, it's going to go in, it's going to go in. And that's where I met Sandy. And we went from there to Atlanta again, and then to the Kennedy Center. And I moved into the Edison Hotel next to the Lunt-Fontanne, where we were going to open, with 2 suitcases. When English was a second language there, German and Hebrew were the first 2 languages at the Edison Hotel in 1979.
Calcutta was right next door as well. Wasn't Calcutta there as well?
At the Edison. Yes, it was there forever. Yes. Yeah, I never stepped foot in New York a day in my life until I got here on a Sunday night.
That's what I want to talk about, because 1979, like I said, I came to New York in 79 as well. It was a very different New York than what it is now.
Yes.
I say that I thought of Breakfast at Tiffany's and Barefoot in the Park, but it was actually Taxi Driver and Midnight Cowboy.
Oh my, yes.
What was the culture shock like for you coming to New York?
It was both positive and negative. Obviously, and I lived at the Edison for about a month until there was someone put a note on our call board at the Lunt saying, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, just bring your toothbrush. And it was up at the Westerly on 8th Avenue. Now, from 46th Street to 54th Street on 8th Avenue at that time period, you could see something of everything.
Mm-hmm. And you did.
On your way to work, but when your show came down and you were going home finally after hanging out at Charlie's for, an hour or two afterwards. And so a lot of that was, I don't know, there was such a thrill at what we were doing. There was such excitement in what we were doing. And all of it was unmatched experiences for me. And I wasn't 21 anymore. It was a few more years later when I came to New York. So I wasn't, I had been a little more grounded because of the culture and the discipline and the kinds of shows and people we were working with at that point at the Dallas Summer Musicals. So I took advantage of all of it. It was a very exciting time period, but no, you watched yourself every step you took. And at that particular point, Midtown. I remember coming out with a friend in the company because we thought, we're in New York. It's Sunday night. We should go out. Well, we went to Times Square on a Sunday night at about 10 o'clock. And I went, I don't think we need to hang out here. And we ended up in a place on 45th Street. I can't believe we wandered in there, but it was Ted Hook's on stage,
right?
Which is a gentleman's club, that area. But it was Ted Hook's on stage on 45th Street, and I walked in the front door, and there was a girl behind the piano singing, and it was the two sisters. Why am I drawing a blank?
Miss Calloway.
Yeah, it was Ann Hampton playing the piano and singing, and I went, well, this is kind of New York-like that I've heard, that I had been told about.
We probably bumped into each other because that was my hangout. I love going there. Yes, Ronnie White was at the piano.
Yeah,
if you remember. Yes,
yeah.
Just an incredible time. So your first show on Broadway, Peter Pan, huge success.
Yes.
What was the impact of that on you, and how did it feel? You're in New York, you're living your dream, you're living the dream of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And did it hit you? Were you able to really drink in what was happening? Or did it feel like an out-of-body experience?
No, sometimes it was, but other times it was just, it was the kind of what it's like, particularly if you're in a hit show on Broadway, 8 shows a week. It is a runaway train. You grab hold and you stay with it. And because of that background I'd had, not only at the Dallas Summer Musicals, which was an incredible training ground, and Jack was an incredible mentor and demanding mentor, and the same kind of thing that I had come out of at Six Flags, that I just knew this was a very deceptive and incredible gift I had been given to come to New York with a hit show, not just to come up to New York and have to hit it. And so just a few months after having opened in New York, I went to Jack's dressing room at the Lunt and said, I had Backstage in my hand. And I said, I think I've just been getting by on instinct. And I don't know if any of these teachers are good, or are they charlatans, or, they just taking your money. And Jack, in his way, looked at me and said, let me work on that. I'll get back to you. And he came to my dressing room about 2 days later. And he said, all right, I got somebody who'll start an acting class for you, because that's what I was looking for. I said, I need to study with somebody. I need to develop, a process here of some sort. I don't even know how I knew it, except I knew that working on something, studying on something always made it better for me, And he talked, he said, if you can find 6 people to start this class, I got somebody who started for you. It was Charlie Kakatsakis. And Charlie had been head of the department up at Bard College and had decided he wanted to come back to New York City and just teach. June Squibb's husband, if you know who June Squibb is.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And Jack and June had moved to New York from Cleveland in the 1950s together. So Jack had known Charlie, since June married him. And Charlie's classes started with me, and there were people I knew who were in Radio City, and there were people I knew who were in Best Little Whorehouse and a chorus line, all of whom we'd worked together in Dallas. And I got 6 people together in my huge living room there at the Westerly. Our huge living room. There were 4 of us. It was called the Orphanage, as a matter of fact. Everybody, because there were no payphones or bathrooms Midtown those days, so everybody came to our house to either talk on the phone or pee. And Charlie started that class in my apartment, in our apartment. And I ended up teaching for him. I ended up doing, because Jack always had us doing things even outside of our 8 shows a week. You know, we'd do a concert of old operetta pieces that he loved so much over at the old Chelsea Theater Center or something. We'd do something all the time, countless. And so when Peter Pan was going to close and go back on the road again, I thought, you know, I just got here, really. I've been there 2 years, and I don't think I think I want to move on. I think I want to stay here in New York. And that's where, within a few months after that, I had auditioned for Rooster and Annie for a new national company that Martin was sending out, and got that. Then went on the road on that national tour for about 7 months until I came back and did it in New York. Yeah.
And how long did it take? I mean, did you get an agent right away? Did you get a manager? Did it take you time to start learning the ropes of what it was to really be an auditioning actor in New York? Or opportunities coming your way?
Well, a lot of them were coming our way because we were working, you know, and we were new, and people wanted to find you. Agents, I worked with a variety of them. I even had a manager for a while. That's how I ended up going all the way down to me and one other person for The Sun and the original Lacage auditions. And it was me and John. That was it. And that last audition, I just stood in the huge rehearsal room there at Michael Bennett Studios down at 890 on Broadway. And I stood by the piano player for about 5-10 minutes. There's about 20 people behind the table, way at the other end of the room. They said, just stand there. And I whispered to the piano player, and I went, is this the way it's been going? And he went, uh-huh. And I never sang another note. I had never sung since I had sung for them for the first time. And they kept calling, saying, you are moving on to the next thing. And then they just said, thank you. I didn't even read anything from the script that day. Wow. So it was like everybody else's story. There are opportunities. You learn from the ones even that you don't get, how to move on. And then you find it's the way Forever Plaid happened, is that literally I had met James Raitt because one morning for a couple of months after I'd gotten off the road with Annie, we had taken a house. When I say a house, it was like a farmhouse out in Fire Island. And I would never go there on the weekend because it was such a scene. I'd go during the week. We only had it for a month or 2 months, something like that. And one morning I woke up about 9:30, and there was a guy sitting at our table in this huge kitchen. By table, it was a picnic table that was in this farmhouse that they'd boated over from New Jersey. And he said, "Hi, I'm James." And I went, "Well, I'm Guy, James. How are you?" He had what I thought was orange juice in his hand. And he said, "I'm good." I said, "Well, are you friends with Arn or Kelby?" And he went, "No, I just was coming home and your door was unlocked and I was tired. I needed to sit down."
That's Fire Island for you.
We were smashed. And so, a couple of years later, he called me and said, "We're putting this together. Would you come in?" And I did, and they wanted to hire me, but I had already said yes and signed a contract to doing The Mystery of Irma Vep with Peter Bartlett in Philadelphia. First of all, at the Wilma, and then at the People's Light and Theater Company out in Malvern, out the main line. So I couldn't do it. But in between those two theaters, we had a week off, and I went with my agent at the time, Brett Adams, to go see something called Forever Plaid in Montclair at the university there. And the guys were alive, and it was in 2 acts, and they were rehearsing in the parents' basement. And I went, "Oh, well, I dodged a bullet there." because it was not very good. And then another year later, James calls me. I've just been in Germany and doing a concert there with a university, and also right before that doing Barnum in Alabama, playing Barnum in Alabama. And he said, "So, Guy, listen, we killed them." And I went, "What?" He said, "The Plaids, they're dead. We killed them. And there's no script, and we've just got some songs and the monologues. Do you want to do this and see if we can come up with something?" He said, "Because Rick Lewis is stealing our thunder for something called the Cardigans down at the West Beth Theater." And I said, "Yeah, let's see what we can come up with." And that's how that started. So you never know if someone is drunk and needs to sit down in your kitchen.
Well, let them in, everybody. That's the clue right there. I want to remind everybody, our sponsor today is the interview game. And if you put hashtag interview game in your comments, you may have a chance to win this today. So everybody who's watching, please enter. Pam Stubbs is here. She won last night. So we've got a great giveaway. I want to talk about your relationship with Sandy and Don.
Yeah.
Because they're watching. You've done so much with them.
Yeah.
And you keep coming back and doing more with them. What is it about this collaboration? And I love that it's a collaboration.
Really has been. And it's collaboration on stage. It's been a collaboration off stage. It's for my partner and I, it's one of the most meaningful long-term relationships that anyone could hope to find, because of who they are, who their sons are, because I've watched them since before they were both born, and now their grandchildren. Which 2 nights ago, it's just last night. Don or Sandy, either one, sent a text of Joey, new picture of the young one, the one that was at the end of September. It's the most beautiful baby you could ever place your eyes on. He's like and the other one is already going to be a vaudeville comic, I guess, the 2.5-year-old. But the work has always been special. And Sandy and I developed that early on. I mean, with pieces that that nobody would probably ever think first to use her. I mean, she's a brilliant Daisy in Driving Miss Daisy. I mean, it was brilliant. It was, and I knew that it would be, that kind of work. Her Amanda in The Glass Menagerie, and also Jeffrey, her oldest son, was the Tom in that production.
Wow.
Before that. It was probably one of the most moving things that you could hope to see, because it was also funny. And Tennessee Williams always said, these are also funny people. And Sandy has that capacity to bring that kind of serious laughter to anything that she does, And then when we decided that I had been doing a production of Forever Plaid, because that literally led me to directing, doing Forever Plaid. People would ask me to put it up, and I would say, "Oh, okay, what else can I do for you?" I was doing it at a theater in what's the name of that town? It's just north of Richmond in Oakland, real big oil town, and in their performing arts center there. And so that show ran much longer than they kept extending it. So they came to me and said, "Do you want to do? We're going to. Someone just died and left us $10 million, and we would love to do a big sort of like benefit concert." The Contra Costa County Symphony was also in residence at this in this city, and so I came up with the idea that maybe we should do like a Broadway Pops night with that symphony. And Jack started working on it, and Sandy started working on it, and Don started working on it and choreographed it. And it turned into 12 years of playing everything from the Boston Pops to the Portland Symphony to a cruise ship in the Caribbean. And it was the most fun you could ever have hoped to find, because it was all guerrilla theater. You'd go into these, you get 2.5 hours with a symphony. We had it orchestrated for 75 pieces. I would have to direct it, with terms of sound and the light cues and everything. And it was so unexpected a show, because we just didn't sit on stools and go sing the music of the night and walk off. It had this sort of spontaneous ad-libbed feel to the script that had a beginning, middle, and end to it. That was, we did it for so long. We were crippled the last time that we did it. Because we were, Don had choreographed it 12 years earlier, and we were still trying to do that. But it really cemented the kind of lifelong friendship and lifelong sensibilities that we have, that we all work kind of the same way.
When did
And
the first? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm done. Yeah.
No, when did the first opportunity come along for you to become a director? And what did you glean from the directors that you had worked with prior to that you had brought with you on that journey?
Yeah. A lot of it had to do with the idea. It came from Forever Plaid, because theaters, after a certain point, we had done it here. Then we took it to Southern California, to the Old Globe first. And then Lars Hansen wanted us at the Pasadena Playhouse. And so I did the deal. I became our agent, to tell you the truth. I should have been getting 10% from those three guys. I should have. Anyway, then we went back to the Old Globe in San Diego when they were normally dark for 10, 11 weeks. And they made more money than they could shake a stick at. And from there, we went to Beverly Hills. And from there, the two producers in London on the West End saw us there, and I got a deal for us to go to London. And then that was it. And they came back, and people would say, could you put this up for me? And I thought, let me see if I like this, because I certainly know how this show needs to be done, because this show could be awful if it's not done well, if it's commented on, if you don't give the guys ownership of who those people are, if they're trying to replicate something we did, because there's not a lot of there in that script, in that text. But there is subtextually a lot there to play with and to deal with that. If you nail that music correctly, then there is a play there that really can be an unmatched experience for four actors to have no fourth wall, perform like that on stage. It's unmatched. And I started liking directing because of the kind of insight I could give to actors. I just have always loved actors. I think they're some of the bravest people on the planet. And I had seen where people, particularly in musical theater, actors who are in musical theater, are like the thoroughbreds of actors, because they're often asked to do more in less time with less help. And I kept thinking, I can make an impact with some of these people that I know who are wonderful musical theater actors, and they're just waiting to be found in pieces that aren't necessarily actors. Because I knew from Jack and Charlie a long time ago that there's only good acting and bad acting. There's not TV acting. There's not musical theater acting. There's good acting and bad acting. And when you're singing, and in those tacit moments when you're dancing, because you know as well as I do, some of the best dancers that you look at, they have something going on, even in a nonverbal way. It's like, Sandy heard Agnes DeMille say about her, yes, but Sandy knows why she's leaping. When she didn't leap high enough, but Agnes DeMille said to Sandy, but you know why you're leaping. And that resonates. And I thought that's maybe a broader, more effective canvas for me to work on and add to this. Because I always kept saying, June Squibb and I would laugh about it. She just turned 93. I said, when I get older, I'll go back to auditions, because everybody will be retired or dead, and there won't be as many people up for the job.
That's the hope of this business.
Well, June says that's the only reason she works. Everybody else is gone. But it was a better way to feel, because they all close, Richard. They all do. Phantom may not close in my lifetime, but it eventually will close. And so it is that immediate process of being in that room, creating that piece with people that that make you better, that you love spending time with, that challenge you and irritate you and get the best out of you. That when those moments happen, that's why you've been doing this, rather than just kind of grind this stuff out show after show, week after week, year after year.
What is the most luxurious rehearsal period that you've ever had on a
time-wise?
Time-wise.
Well, I guess it was probably back, say, for example, when we were putting together the national tour of Annie, we had 5 weeks. When they used to give you that. Peter Pan, we had about 4 or 5 weeks. Then you'd started previews, and so you had more time before you even opened. But I watched it erode over the years, where they finally stopped doing those 8-day wonders. They used to try to put those, and I've done a couple, Mame, Oliver, in 8 days. and you can't really direct. All you can do is cast as well as you can hope for, and then just get it up and get out of the way and go home. But probably those 4 and 5 week rehearsals. Lord Theater used to give you 4 weeks too. You know, I've done things in Lord, like the Most Happy Fella I did playing Herman up at the Goodspeed Opera. That was the 2 piano version. If you remember that moved from Goodspeed. I
My
think
friend Mary Helen Fisher was in that production.
yes, right. Yeah,
Dear friend who passed away a few years ago.
that's right.
But in Goodspeed, to this day, they still are very generous
Yeah,
with their rehearsal time.
Yeah.
So that is a luxury. I want to ask you, with I mean, since you've come to New York, 79, believe it or not, 42 years ago, 43 years ago.
How does that make you feel? I mean, I just can't conceive of it. Can you?
I can't believe it myself. But of course,
you can hear how these memories just keep bouncing back to us.
Absolutely.
You know,
but I want to ask you, we've seen so many changes in this business.
Yeah.
And you've seen changes on both sides of the footlights. What are some of the changes that you've seen in the business that you absolutely love? And what are things that you really miss about what was in place when you first started?
Yeah. The best thing about it is the almost year by year exponential growth of the technical capacities of the theater. You know, it's astonishing what they can do with computer graphics. It's just those kinds of sound, of lights, and the physicality of it is pretty astonishing what they can accomplish now. And that's exciting to me always. What is not very happy to think about is the kinds of the social net that the theater used to provide for its own. You know, it was a very championed world, and it didn't always have to be in this town. You know, you could be in Chicago, you could be in Kansas City, you could be in Fort Worth. You know, it was a real community, and that community has lost some of its impact and allowing people to grow and mature in their careers, because they feel like they have to hit it. There's a lot of, they're very slick. They're very, they can hit their marks, but you see show after show after show that misses the opportunity for that particular actor in that role to find a deeper, more meaningful way to have an impact with that piece. I'm trying to be nice. It's
no. I'm right there with you, because I am totally in total agreement with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, Don was talking about this last week, the fact that it went to referring to it as a track that a person is on. And for me, it's like the heart and soul is being stripped away. And it's becoming almost this generic version of what theater is becoming instead of what it used to be, at least for myself. And I feel that as a member of the theater community and as an audience member as well.
Yeah. We also have a training, because I've taught so much over the last few years, because I think it's important. And I like doing it. I like to see the growth. But you have an educational system where literally most of the kids at a certain time period have grown up in a world where no child has been left behind. That you get a ribbon just by showing up. That you go to a 4-year conservatory or a 4-year program at some universities. Now all the universities have 4-year programs because they found a way to cash in on that. But as well as I do, any environment is only as good as the people who are teaching there, regardless of their past reputation, regardless of who in 1992 graduated from there, and then now they have 2 Oscars. It's who's teaching there now. And you see a lot of them come out of those programs thinking, okay, I'm ready. And what needs to be pounded into the people who decided that this profession found them is that it is a lifelong learning experience. You don't all of a sudden think, okay, 4 years, I'm ready for Broadway. I'm ready every moment, because we start from zero every time we get a new show. Even if you think you know that show, even if you saw it when it was first on Broadway, you start from square one, and you start learning from theirs, and it adds to your body of work. And that has to, you watch somebody like Sandy work. It is literally, it takes 120% of her. She does not know how to commit any less. She doesn't get up there and try to mimic who she was 20, 30, 40 years ago. She starts from zero again, and it takes a toll.
Absolutely.
And you need to know that at 24 and 34. And I see kids that come to me and go, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. They're in their mid-30s. And I say, well, let's start over. Let's start from, thinking about your craft from the beginning all the way, from its inception stage all the way up again, so that you turn this into a lifelong craft,
And that's what it's about. It's about the lifelong journey.
It really is.
I'm going to show a film clip from our sponsor.
Okay.
And then on the other side, I'm going to tell everyone how they can win this. Wait till you see this. This is really neat. And then I've got some fun questions for you. So
Okay.
I hope they're fun for you. So here it is, the interview game.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Will, and in this video I'll briefly introduce the interview game, where our mission is to bring people closer. We do this in 3 ways. First, our interview game one-on-one editions are reciprocal interviews played over a video chat. They're for grandparents, grandchildren, family members, and valued friends to share laughs and connect deeply. Record your conversations for free and keep cherished memories for life. Second, our group editions bring larger groups together, from extended families and family friends to workplace buddies and classmates, for a spirited game of inquiry and revelation that fosters connection and trust. And third, What You Mean to Me is a simple way to thoroughly make someone's day in just 10 minutes. This is a free service we provide to help you spread appreciation. Just follow the simple instructions, answer the prompts, and press send. Especially during the pandemic, deepen connections and capture memories for life with the interview game.
Isn't that a lot of fun?
That's fascinating.
Yes, it's great. So what's going to happen is everyone put in hashtag interview game,
Right.
and we're going to watch the numbers go up. And in a few minutes, we're going to do like a roulette wheel, and we will pull a random winner. But you have to enter in order to win the game. And you can choose the version of this that you want to get. So I'm going to remove this. And this is my homage to James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. And the first question that I'm going to ask you, if there were no boundaries, what is the one thing that you would be doing in your life
At this particular moment,
at this particular moment?
it would probably be traveling, because there have been a lot of boundaries to that over the last couple of
That's
years,
true.
and
True.
there still are. It would probably be traveling. I have this. I love to do it. I haven't done it for a while, and I didn't realize what. When that first year I did my taxes, I realized for the first time since 1976, I didn't have any road expenses because I hadn't been on the road. And I went, no wonder I'm itching to travel somewhere. I haven't been anywhere. So that would probably be the first thing I would do, is to travel some more.
Oh, God, I'd love to go back to that. I was scheduled to go to Africa next month with Lucy Arnaz. It's been postponed now till 2022. 2023. Years are running together. So God, hopefully we'll be able to go.
I'll have to wheel you in and wheel you back out of Africa.
That's right. This is an interesting question. Who have you shown the most sympathy for in this business?
Shown the most sympathy for?
Yes.
Wow. I don't know. The most sympathy for. I've always had great, don't tell her this. She's probably watching. I've always had great sympathy for Sandy. I really have. Because she always has, she evokes things out of me. She always ends up making me cry at some point. And I think it's because of where she sits.
All the right reasons.
Yeah, she sits in my heart and soul like that. But I've had great sympathy for her. In the way that she works, the way she has carried herself since she was in her late teens in this profession. I mean, that's a lifetime of work that I get to see the end result of that, but it always takes a toll for her. So I always have great sympathy. And I would tell her to hush and buck up and stop whining right now if she was here.
Okay. What other projects would you like to tell us about right now?
Well, I've got two that I was working on right before everything shut down, and one of which, and we've been working on them since then. One of which I got two performances up at the end of August, up at the Triad, as a matter of fact, the old Steve McGraw's, where Forever Plaid started, Forbidden Broadway, for that matter. And it's a young composer that I've done one of his full-length plays for, but this is a review, 4 characters, 1 piano, called Just Laugh. And it is so smartly written. And it really is a review with a point of view. And it has a kind of a conceptual nature to it. It's a family of 4. And it is some of the smartest, funniest composing that he's the co-lyricist too, as well as the composer, with Lauren Gundrum. And we got a good video out of those 2 performances up there at the end of August. So hopefully this can maybe, be a very attractive thing for people to want to produce, because it is, you don't get a lot of smart funny. You get a lot of camp songs, or you get some novelty stuff, but that kind of smart, funny, and at times poignant human writing that he does is really great. And then there was a story theater piece that I was working on before things shut down. In fact, I had it up at the Triad like the first week in March was the last performance of it, right before things shut down. Actor by the name of David Bottrell.
Oh, I know David.
First production of The Normal Hall.
Yes, I've interviewed David.
And he's got a piece that, he's got those great stories about his life, about him. He's such a good writer too, funny writer. It's like a scandalous and scurrilous Andy Griffin set of stories called David Dean Bottrell Makes Love, a one-man show. And we were about to do 4 Wednesdays in February, but we just postponed it till April now because he's got new stories. And we've come up with we did it down at Dixon Place, and then we recorded it for Penguin Random House audiobooks. And then I want to put it up one more time because I think if it could get some traction here in this town, but this is not the time to do it. We're going to wait till April to do it. So those are the 2 things I've got coming up.
Wonderful. Who made the strongest first impression on you in this business? And you may have already told us.
Yeah, Jack Lee. Jack Lee was, I mean, he was irascible and he could clear a room out, particularly back then. He mellowed a little bit, not much as he got older, but he could, he'd spent too much time working with Bob Fosse and Joe Layton and Dorothy Fields. And, his impact to me, his commitment level, the people he knew, the people that had inspired him, I remember that was the first big impact when I went, this is not just a musical theater we're in. This is a big time art form to work with.
Wonderful. Do you feel that you've ever been taken advantage of in this business?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Not by you today, though. Not that I was concerned about it, because Sandy Dunn gave me the heads up that you were a great interviewer, that you were fun to be with, and you were smart as hell, and all of that has been true.
That's very nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And they're not a good audience, by the way. They're not an easy audience, those 2.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. What's the most beautiful sight that you've ever seen?
Most beautiful sight. The most recent one is their grandson Joey, but probably the most beautiful sight that I've been seeing recently is some of the most sensational sunsets out my apartment window, which has given me a whole new sense of gratitude and thankfulness about living high up and living in this city and looking out over the Hudson and those orange, pinkish, reddish sunsets that we've been seeing, and thinking this town has taken it on the chin. This profession has been not only taking it on the chin, but it's at times over the last 2 years been its own worst enemy. This profession has, but it's going to survive because the human spirit survives.
Amen. Thank you for that. Amen. Yeah. When was your life most out of control in this business, and how did you get through it?
most out of control, I think probably when we opened in Beverly Hills with Forever Plaid at the Cannon Theater. And everybody decided we were du jour and the thing to do. And it went from the Del Rio sisters to Carol Burnett to Merv Griffin to Charlton Heston to, I could go on and on, with the people that came to that little theater to see that show. And we were on the Tonight Show. We opened in lieu of Jay Leno's opening monologue. We had 8 minutes to open. And I put together this 8-minute, condensed mashup of Forever Plaid that we opened the Tonight Show with. And we were on the Joan Rivers Show. We were on the Jerry Lewis Telethon. We were everywhere. And it was a heady time period to get through those 8 shows a week, doing all the things we went to. And then we went right to London. And even on our days off, we were on television shows or radio shows or I met and talked for about 4 or 5 minutes with Queen Elizabeth backstage at the Royal Variety Show. And I can tell you what's in her purse: her glasses and her playbill. Her playbill. No. She got them both out of her purse to talk to me about the songs in the show that were her favorite songs when she was a little girl. And all of that could have easily spun my life out of control, but it was always about, like, tonight we don't know who's going to be out there, so we got to buck up and do the best job we can, and go home.
I've got a great story that I'll share with you. Larry Kurt and Tammy Grimes were doing Jubilee. And after a while, Tammy Grimes was getting, she was just phoning the performance in. And one night, Larry Kurt went up to her and he says, "You're not going to believe who's in the audience tonight." And she said, "Who?" And he said, "I'll tell you after the show." So every time she would see him, "Who's in the audience? Who's in the audience?" And this went on throughout the entire performance. At the end of the show, the curtain comes down. She's like, looking, who's in the audience? And when the curtain came down, she said, "Who was in the audience?" He said, "People who paid to see you." Yeah. And don't ever forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they pay even more than they've ever paid before now,
Yes, that's right. When were you the strongest that you've ever had to be in this business?
A couple of different times. I was in the middle I was in 50 Million Frenchmen at the Pittsburgh Public Theater. This is after we had come back from performing in London, right after, really. And my brother committed suicide.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And that company of 50 Million Frenchmen, many of whom I'm still in touch with, jumped in, got me out of town. The general manager and the management there at the Pittsburgh Public at that point took care of everything. And I came back because my father, as he said at that time period, said, "You need to go finish your work." And I did. It was around it was the first part of December. And then when Sandy and Jeffrey and 2 other incredible young actors were doing the Glass Menagerie at a little theater in the mountains of Pennsylvania, that was a real playground for me because I did everything from Shakespeare to Neil Simon to Joe Orton at the productions of shows at that theater. We were doing the Glass Menagerie, and my father died right before we were to go into tech. And so I paper teched the show at 1 a.m. I got out of there, got down off the mountain to go to Pittsburgh yet again, like I had years ago with my brother's death, to fly home and do my father's funeral and come back and go into tech and put that show up. Because I know my father would have said, "You have to go finish your work." Mm-hmm. And he loved Sandy. In fact, he always flirted with her. He always flirted with Sandy. Or she did him. He may have flirted. Oh, Don, don't listen to this. Anyway, those probably were the, I came from, an old ex-Marine from the South Pacific in World War II with his work ethic. You have to go finish your work. So, but that was terribly hard for me because it was about sons, leaving home and leaving the mother and, parents and children. Yeah. But
thank you so much for sharing. I'm sorry that you had that experience with your brother, and
Well, we are the luckiest profession in the world because we get to bring that to our work.
mhm.
If you allow yourself to and
True.
can access
True.
that, you can bring it to your work.
That's
A lot of
true.
people can't do that. They can't bring that to their job. And we
That's
get to
true.
bring any wonderful thing, any strange thing, any sad thing, any infuriating thing into our work if we know how to channel that.
Absolutely wonderful. And this is my last question for you.
Yeah.
What was the biggest sin ever committed against you in this business? And don't mention names or anything to give it away. I'm only asking this question to see how you got through it. That's the only reason I ask these questions. So, what was, a difficult thing that happened in this business, and what got you through it?
Probably working on a project, helping to develop that project, putting together readings for that project, getting incredible actors who happen to be friends assigned, associated with that project in those readings, and they all went into production with it, and I didn't.
Wow. And that's
Well,
everyone in a nutshell. These things happen in this business.
my point. I'm not the only one that's ever happened to. And anytime you hear these conversations that needs to be a more equitable profession, show business never really has been.
Oh, well, I see here that 7 people have signed up, and we're going to find out right now who our winner is. So this is how this works. And Ami Diane, I want to thank you for donating at the game this evening. And we'll just do this, and we'll come here. Isn't this fun?
Oh my God. That's so funny.
Well, there's a reason why I put my name in, because Don wrote the interview game instead of interview game. And so I went in and entered my name so that if I won, I'm sending this to Don and Sandy.
So this is not fixed. This game is not
fixed. It's not fixed. But Don did write the interview game, and I knew that he would be ineligible. So
oh my God.
I wanted to make sure. So I'm going to get that to you, Don and Sandy.
You better let me play with him.
Yes. I'm actually going to leave the screen in a moment. But before I do, I want to thank everybody for being here today. It means the world to me, and I'm sure I can speak for Guy when I say this. When you take the time to spend time with us in this business, we appreciate it. So thank you for showing up. If this was your first time, I hope it will not be your last. Leave a comment on YouTube. Share this with your friends. Tell other people about this. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. And what I'd like you to do now is to go to your Facebook friends list, and I want you to reach out to the 9th name that pops up. And then I want you to go to this website, whatyoumeantome.com, and the number 2, me.com. And I want you to go to that 9th friend, and I want you to send them what they mean to you. Because I think it's important that we let each other know, especially nowadays, what people mean to us in our lives. So this game is a perfect way of doing this. And also, the interview game is available. Go on their website, order 2 versions. Keep one for yourself and send one to the 9th friend on your list. Now, Guy, I always...
My luck, if I did that, it would be Don Correa, would be the 9th name that would pop up.
Well, he's going to be calling you up because he's got his own version that I'm going to send to him. But I'm going to leave the screen right now. You've got the final word. Anything you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching. I thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give. Thanks for being here today, Guy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I only have to say that was a great interview. It's thrilling that he does that. It's thrilling that I got a chance to do this, and so many others have too. So tell your friends so that they can tune in and hear more interesting people than I discuss this intriguing business. Thanks very much.